Hello there, and welcome to the Kirk Minahan wrap-up show. Today's January 18th. Today's show is called Steve's Pajamas because Kirk was very, very critical of Steve lounging around the hotel in his socks, pajamas, sweatpants, and just kind of hanging out while there was some sort of missing piece of equipment. So I am joined today by John from Scranton, Tony Cass, and High Blind Mike. How are you three doing today?
Well,
Good.
Nice. So let's jump right into it because the show started out today. Kirk predicted that the show would be a catastrophic failure. I don't think it sounded terrible. You could definitely tell that there was a StreamYard lisp going on, which always happens for some reason whenever Kirk is on StreamYard. But other than that, it didn't sound terrible, but you could definitely tell that it was recorded on StreamYard. How do you think of Kirk's prediction of that this is going to be a total disaster? Did you think it was? Did you think it wasn't too bad?
It was. From a technical standpoint, it was fine. Yeah, it was. One of them had really lousy audio, but technically it was fine. I don't think anyone really cared that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they were able to play a parody song, so it's not like they had no soundboard at all.
It gives you like a good topic. It does Kirk went off about it for 45 minutes off the top, so that gives you content right then and there. Does it sound bad? Yeah, it wasn't professional sounding. It sounds like us right now, So
yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, I'm gonna say that I think this was kind of not the straw that broke the camel's back, but I do think when Kirk brought it up weeks ago that he thinks that Steve is, out of the KMS show and he's totally involved in the case and the secret project. I do think there is some truth to that, and I think Kirk got a lot of it off his chest today while he was going. And I don't necessarily think this might be a hot take. I don't necessarily think that's entirely on Steve. I think he might be kind of overworking himself trying to produce these two shows right now. And it just kind of caught up to him, and he just kind of made a brain fart and forgetting a cable in Boston while they were down there, and wasn't able to grab the right thing. So, what are your guys' thoughts on it? Do you think Steve is checked out of the Kirk Minahan show? Do you think he's just not as enthused as he was perhaps a year ago? Or what are your guys' thoughts?
Absolutely checked out. Even the fact that Kirk today was willing to do the show with Mike, with absolutely nobody able to hear the thing, just because he didn't want to do a show with just Steve, I think that says a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he was trying to. I didn't ever get the vibe that Kirk is against doing a show with just Steve. He has been doing shows with just Steve for the past 4 months. I know last Wednesday we had the Captain Kirky's top 20 countdown, which Steve wasn't very involved with.
So,
yep.
Can I present you with some alternative facts on the subject of Steve?
It is Cass,
right,
man.
So, and bear in mind that I'm no Steve defender generally, but think about the fans of this show and their sort of rabid consumption of any content KMS related. Now, if you're anybody in that role other than Kirk Minahan, all of this fervor is not about you. You're just sort of catching shrapnel. And if we're being honest, I know a lot of people don't love Steve, but I don't know how much better anybody else, like everyone talked about Colin or whoever. I don't think you'd have anybody doing a better job technically.
I agree with that.
I just have to imagine it's got to get exhausting when the constant shit just keeps coming. And the reaction when Kirk...
Steve is a workhorse. Steve is a workhorse, man.
When Kirk looks like he's going away, everyone's like, oh, Kirk, take your time. You got to do your best. And everyone is supportive. If Steve shows an ounce of weakness for a quarter of a second, the piranhas are all over him. So I don't think he's completely out of line to just be like, you know what? I'm sick of every single time something goes wrong or isn't perfect, just getting shit on like I'm an idiot. I do feel where he's coming from.
Nah, fuck that. Steve's a whiny bitch, dude. He is the hardest working man in business. He's the hardest working man in this business, but he whines about it. When he's questioned about it, he fucking whines. Like, sorry.
Can you imagine being the hardest working man and getting fucking John from Scranton shitting on you? That's gotta not be the best feeling in the world.
I know exactly.
No, I think Steve's a hard ass working dude, though. Like, Steve puts his, like he said today, life on the line for Kirk. But he's producing this new the case, and then he's producing this show, which is a fucking full-time job to begin with, and doing both of those at the same time. Yeah, he gets this much to bitch about, but he fucking does it. He said he put his neck on the line for Kirk today. Like, come on, dude. Like you are like Kirk did put him in place.
Yeah.
Like you are working for me, buddy. Like I like that, but Steve does it better than anyone else. Cullinan would be better with the Minifans because he's a Minifan, and Steve just isn't. We all know that. Like, it's not like he's not a Minifan anymore. He never really was a Minifan. Him saying like, yeah, I like certain Minifans. Like, no shit, you like certain Minifans, Steve. We knew that the whole fucking time.
If we're being honest, though, how many people is he really talking about when he says he doesn't like certain Minifans that are up his ass all the time?
Like fucking 10.
Exactly. What
I mean,
6 to 10? It might not even be double digits.
That's fine, but he's saying he likes certain Minifans too. How many is that? That's even probably less than the number of Minifans he likes, Castman. So that's what I was kind of going for, you know?
Yeah, I understand.
Still a good producer.
Especially when what Tony was saying about how, you know, everything Steve like screws up on, or if he, you know, plays a clip out of line, everyone just suddenly jumps online and starts shitting on, oh, Steve was terrible. This is
yeah. I mean, up at 11's the best example of that. Like if that show's not up at 11, people
people
tweeted immediately. Like that's his job, dude. He's got to deal with that stuff. I mean,
yeah, no, I know, and I think that's kind of part of the deal he got when he kind of joined. He might not have known of what he was signing up for, but
joining the craziest family in the world.
The producer of the Kirk Minahan show is going to get shit on for their mistakes, no matter what they do.
Like, yeah, and it's been a year now, and then some. So he can't take the "oh God, I didn't know what I was getting into" route now. That argument would have worked like last August. I don't think you can do that now. But the first time he said something about
he was
hot
hit with it right off the bat with this show. Like the parents thing hit him right off the bat. So like he knew what he was getting into after what? That was what, day 1 or 2?
Yeah, I think that was the second day. So
that was really early.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame Steve for kind of being like, hey, people like Ziggy Robinson or the Rundown Show, shut the fuck up. You have no idea what you're talking about. But also you just gotta take it with a grain of salt, and kind of like that's what makes people like the show so much, is that people are constantly involved and they can give feedback that gets talked about on the show, and whether or not it's positive feedback or negative feedback. I mean, you look at someone like, I understand when Steve is coming from, where he says like it's just a small majority of people who just constantly bitch, but you got to look at it, and the people constantly bitch about Steve really don't bitch about anything. I don't want to say anything else, but you take it someone like Ziggy Robinson, who is he's kind of grown his persona on kind of like shitting on Steve. That's kind of his go-to. Yeah. And Steve brought up a possible reason for that during today's show, that they're to do with songs and something like that. But
this was proved not true by Ziggy, though. Ziggy said this wasn't true, and which means he mistaken Ziggy for Warden of the North, because Warden of the North is the one who hates him and shits on him for not playing his songs. So he mistaken, or Ziggy and Warden are the same person.
But you look at like Ziggy's probably like, you can't get to be as much as big of a Minifan as he is. I mean, he will follow the show to the edges of the earth when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, I think Steve. I didn't think. I wanted to kind of call this like the death of Steve Robinson, like 1.25, because it was.
I think there was already an episode called that.
Yeah, so this one's 1.25. This is the extended version without Hillary Duff.
I don't really want to go like the full half, because I really don't think, because it wasn't the focus of the entire show. That it hit on other topics such as Zarbano losing his job and Patreon. And
I think that's the only reason they didn't make this whole episode about that, because there was so much other stuff to talk about. If today was just a normal Monday, I think Steve would have been plastered all day long.
Do you think he would have been?
And I think they were light on Zarbano too. They beat him up a little, but man, they didn't hit Zarbano half as hard as I thought they were going to.
All of Kirk's passion went towards fucking Zarbano, or went towards
Steve's pants.
Zarbano.
Steve wearing pajamas. It's really just
so that's a good segue into the next.
But subject. I do want to say one quick thing about the pajamas. It's not as though this is completely unfounded criticism for Kirk, because you'll remember the 2019 best of. You know, there was supposed to be integrated songs, and it was supposed to be all intermixed. And at the end of that, Steve kind of said, yeah, you know what? It was just taking too long, so I just put it out. It was whatever. And Kirk sort of blew it off. He's like, whatever. But, you know, I think in Kirk's mind at 6:30, if you're already in PJ pants, you've just surrendered. This isn't going to work. So like, I think Kirk was trying to hammer the point home that don't just give up on the show being good quality audio. At 6:30 p.m., you could get this fixed before tomorrow morning. I think that's where his frustration was. He just is great at stretching a premise, and it became 40 minutes of shitting on Steve, which was great.
Which I like the episodes where every once in a while when, Steve would take some shit, Mike would take some shit. I'm waiting for the day Carabas takes some shit. I think that would be interesting to see how
he'd have to understand it.
I kind of am too. No, Carabas can understand it, but I don't know. I'm interested to see what's going to happen when Carabas gets his reckoning.
Jared Carabas.
Really?
He's so goddamn boring.
Oh
my! And Kirk makes him interesting. So that is that's it. Jared, he's fake. He lies about not knowing things. He pretends that things he knows are bad are not bad because he doesn't like them being bad. Jared Carabas drives me insane. I'm sure he's a nice man, but I listen to Section 10 when I can't get to sleep. All right, that's it. Jared Carabas is Boring.
I don't want to go on a Jared Carabas rant, but this confirms it. I mean, there are people out there. Carabas said that there are people out there who
there are haters.
I am one of the haters. He's so boring. Ryan Whitney is the best toy ever. Jared Carabas is so terrible.
All right.
I wish Portnoy would make him move to New York just so he couldn't come on the show.
Oof, that's a hot take. I think a lot
what a take. Gas man is going off.
It's what it is. You got me on Carabas. I can't stand it. I'm sure he's a nice man. He's boring as the day is long.
So I want to. I mean, do you guys have anything else to say about Steve? I mean, I think this was just kind of one of his. Let's call it like a.
I think it's disgusting. He wears socks with pajamas. That's just gross. I'm sorry. I had to
weird
say
behavior. Yeah, I'm with you on that, John. Weird behavior.
I don't know.
It's just disgusting the way he treats the Minifans. He treats everyone like shit. I mean, he has a great opportunity. People would kill to be able to be Steve, have that pay, have that job, and he's just miserable all the time when he whines and like when Kirk criticizes him, he threatens to quit. I can't stand him.
Wouldn't it be the opposite though if he was kissing everybody's butt and talking about how great it was all the time? Wouldn't we be shitting on him for the opposite?
Yeah,
sure, but that's not the case, so I'm going to complain about that.
Yeah,
but we would there's an example of that. I mean, Cullinane tried to do it that way, and he had a mental breakdown. So there's there's the other way to go.
So the next part I wanted to bring up, part of the show is, which I thought was going to be the death of Joe Zarbano. I thought it was going to be a celebration of the man who you could say was responsible for Kirk being kicked out of WEEI and let go, and their spiral down the toilet.
Did somebody send him a cake shaped like a dick? Did that happen? Somebody's got to do that. Someone's got to send him a cake shaped like a dick.
Why did they say they were going to do it?
He did that to a hockey team or something back in. Yeah, was it Chicago?
Producer.
He's on Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, the poor guy, I mean, his family could probably use some cake right now. They're probably all they're waiting for that stimulus check to get in so they can, go to the grocery store. But it's, but no, I
Kirk
thought
needs like a ceremony for this kind of thing. Like, know how Portnoy has the bottles of Ace of Spades? So Kirk needs they should do like a Paint Your Life where they get him like a portrait of all of his dead enemies. So he could just hang on that barren wall behind him or something. Because
Marco right in the middle.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like, there's so many pelts they could put on that wall and it's still blank. Shout out the mural. But like, we need a way to celebrate these deaths. Like, this is supposed to be a death of an enemy, right? Like, that's what the whole goal is here, right?
Speaking of it, too, I'm surprised there wasn't any reaction from Portnoy on this news, because I know he fucking hates Zarbano. Because
probably doesn't, dude. He probably doesn't even know.
He probably doesn't know.
He's so busy, but I think it goes back to Howitzer Gate with all that stuff with Brady's kid when he was kicked off WEI and stuff like that. So, but no, I thought there was going to be a complete beatdown. I like the stories from today about how when Zarbano came in to tell Kirk, like, hey, just plug the shows, and he was like, get the fuck out of here, and there was almost a fight. I really think that, and then he told them, like, hey, in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, you're going to lose your job because of you letting me go. I think that's just another example of how Kirk was right about this situation. And
not exactly Nostradamus on that one, but yeah, I mean,
everyone I've ever talked to that has worked for or dealt with that man has said he's a scumbag. That's all I know about him. So I'd imagine this guy's got to be a scumbag. Like this guy sucks. And like, I mean, I just started following Kirk when Barstool came around, so it was all over by that time. But what I've learned from that day forward, this guy sucks. He's a scumbag and he deserved to lose his job. And it seems like he resigned in dishonor, basically. I mean, we all
if you're going to get that high up in a corporation like Entercom, you have to be willing
at that point anyway. So
you got to compromise some principles to get that high up. And the thing is, I don't know the man, obviously, but everything I've ever heard from anyone who's ever worked there is that the guy's just a huge dick. So, you feel bad for his family. Not so much for him.
I don't know his fucking family.
Well, I don't know his wife. He has wife and kids. I don't know that they did anything wrong, but whatever.
They probably did.
They support him. They gave him support.
Yeah.
He's got a real bad history. He's got a bad history with the female interns too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I
fuck your family, Zarbano.
I don't think Kirk went light on him. I just think he was not distracted, but just kind of like more passionate about the Steve stuff.
His fire just burned bright with the Steve stuff, and the Zarbano stuff was like something he had prepared, but just the fire was out by that time. Like he just burned.
The fire is out. I just think he just kind of
he was more excited about that stuff. Maybe that's what I think. Like,
And I also think that since the
show
announcement happened over the weekend, like this was something that was announced on Saturday, so you kind of had a day to kind of not simmer down, but just you don't get that. Like I love like the heat of the moment Kirk reactions when he just finds out news and he just fucking rips people to shreds. I think this would have been great if like they announced it tomorrow or Sunday night that Zarbano was stepping down, but it's good to see him gone. And there was a interesting little segment from today's show where they talked about how they would say, quote unquote, save WEI. And I think both Steve and Mike had terrible answers for this.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You don't like Steve's? I think Steve's answer is what the answer is, because it's just like from a business point, that's how you're going to have to do it. That's how
the hole's too deep. I agree. What else are they going to do? You're going to try to pay for talent now?
Overhead right now. That company's overhead right now.
Oh, you muted yourself.
John, we lost you.
I said I worked for Cumulus, and like that's just a competitor of Entercom, and the same with them. Their overhead, their cash flow coming out was nowhere near what their salespeople could keep up with, and it's just bloated and dying. And they're just going to have to either consolidate, like Steve said, or they're just going to blow up. And the thing is, like terrestrial radio can't go out of business. It's always going to be there. So like, what happens then? Like what happens?
I would say there's still a market for it in the sense of, the Sports Hub is doing great numbers. The Sports Hub seems to be.
Oh yeah, there's always going to be a market. People are always going to have the radio.
I think WEI just was so bad these past couple of years. That's like they didn't lose it because radio died.
It's like a nuclear effect. When Kirk left, it's just going to be wave after wave after wave of unsuccess, just because of that's where the fans were based from. That's where, and they turned their back. Zarbano's a scumbag. Like he treated people like he was better than them. Like
it's worse now because they've got that stink on them. WEI with its paid talent is pulling in 3.6 ratings. Like who's going to want to go to sinkingship.com like that? You're not going to get any big talent to jump. And even if you could, what you're going to have to pay them, you're never going to justify initially.
If you're
going to need to lose money into it. And no one's going to do that.
If you're a salesman for a radio station at that point, you're no longer selling talent. Now you're just selling your radio station. I've worked for a radio station selling ads to no talent. You're just selling the fact that you're on this station, So like, and that's when fucking sponsors dip. They're gone. No one wants to advertise in radio, The money is just gone.
And so I don't know. I kind of found that was a defeatist attitude. My way of going, I'll get to Mike's in a second, but my way of going about it is I would offer I would offer him a one contract. I would say you can come and rip to shit Entercom, rip to shit WEI, a 1-year contract, give him $2 million a year, double whatever he was paying, deck out, get rid of the entire lineup, and then say
Kirk said he won't do it for $500 million. So you're a little short. You're not going to make it at $1 million. You got to step that up a bit.
I know that, but this is what they should be doing. They need to bring in a talent like Kirk Minahan or someone who is that big for Feidelberg, someone from Barstool.
So let me ask you a question, Justin. What does someone on a talent level of a Dave Portnoy or a whoever, Kirk Minahan, insert Dan Katz, what do they want with Entercom? That's the bigger question. Because I understand why Entercom wants them, but I can, like, if you're Big Cat right now,
I mean, they could sell the station to Barstool, and now Barstool Radio is solved.
To just syndicate for that purpose.
Then at that point, make a syndicated station across the whole fucking country. Now Barstool is a syndicated station across the country based out of Boston, Massachusetts, WEEI.
And that would be great. It's just to rebuild it with on-air talent.
I mean, they would have to close. It never happened.
I completely agree, Tony, but I'm just saying, if I was in the position of Entercom, this is what I would be doing to try to save
Yeah.
Like I don't think it would ever work, but this is what I'd be like, okay, fuck, we have to do something. And then Mike's scenario where he just goes, he said like he travels back in time to 2017. It's like, okay,
he's like, well, what you need it's called the flux capacitor.
Flux capacitor. And you travel back in time. It's like, I think Kirk was looking for not a serious, but like a legitimate way you would go about fixing Entercom and EEI now that Snake Zarbano's gone. But you guys have any, like, I know you said that, Kirk would never go back there, and I completely agree with that. But if you guys
got some indigestion.
Yeah, dude, these new fucking meds I'm on are fucking killing me.
Are they?
If you were in the position of, Zarbano's replacement, what would you guys do? Would you do the syndicated route that Steve said? Would you travel back in time? Would you offer Kirk a shit ton of money to kind of just run the station, or would you guys go? We'll start with John.
Like I said, my attempt would be to get a Boston Barstool Radio, and that would be syndicated across the whole nation in a second. Like, boom. That would be the only option, but like I said, then you're basically shutting down your whole company. So that's literally impossible. So I would go with the syndicated route, like Steve said.
Tony, you'd probably put on Howie Carr and Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, conservative talk, baby. That's what's up. No, let's assume I can't blow up the station for the moment. I got to save it. I'm hired. Yeah, the only option is you pray that some big radio talent is going to buy your pitch to try to do what John's talking about. Make a syndicated service that's, nationwide. This is the flagship station. If you can't get someone on board for that, I don't know what you do. You're trying to sell stuff. You had marketable product that you've slowly whittled down into something that now literally nobody wants to buy.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think you'd have a little trouble initially selling even on your syndicated stream just because of how toxic WEEI is right now to begin with. Once you could establish that all the key players are gone and the on-air talent's gone and it's just music, you could maybe make some, money that way. But saving it now, I really feel like they just didn't want to fire Zarbano because they just didn't want to give Kirk another pelt.
That's true.
Honestly, like, how is Dale Arnold still working there? And I don't know Dale Arnold, but the content is unlistenable. His ratings are in the toilet, but he's still there. Like, I don't know how that works.
Dale Arnold just makes me laugh. Everything about him. My dad always watches the Bruins game, and he's on like the Bruins intermission reports, and he's like, it makes me sad. And I'll just be like, you have no idea how much. Like, I want to say the Minifans have just ruined this man's life because he's just so boring. He doesn't play along. He's just a piece of shit. And he's like, oh well, yeah, it's good to. I don't know the whole things. But High Blind Mike, how would you go about saving 103.7 or 93.7?
93.7. The simplest thing to do is you sell that thing and you run away as fast as possible.
Yeah, you sell it and you run.
Would Kirk buy it?
People like Bob, Kirk wouldn't buy it because Bob Murchis and people like that would just ruin it for him. He could have fun with it. They're just miserable.
That's true.
He'd buy it maybe to fire all of the executives. And
he would do the Ari Gold and come through with the paintball gun and just shoot everybody.
I like Tony's idea. Kirk would buy it for like a week. He'd have an office, and he'd just keep calling people into his office, firing them, and being like, "Okay, let's bring in the next."
Make him stand in a line.
Fired,
and the last guy in line is going to be Dale Arnold. You know that, all the way at the back, 60 people deep. Number 61 is Dale Arnold.
Oh, that'd be great. That would be quite interesting. So I don't know if you guys have anything else to say about Zambrano. I keep saying Zambrano because Mike
Zambrano.
Just embrace it, dude. Zambrano. Just embrace it.
On his old podcast, he didn't refer to him as Zarbano. It was Zambrano for some reason. But I don't know if you guys have anything else to say about Joey getting fired. or resigning, which is always, I always love it when people are like, oh,
Yeah, I thought it was funny.
Head coach is like, we mutually agreed to part ways.
Yeah. It's funny.
Really,
I've decided I don't want to get paid anymore, and my employers decided they don't want to pay me anymore. So this worked out great. Like you'd think one of us would be awkward, but no, we both agree we don't want to pay me anymore.
oh yeah, it's like so what they did. That's pretty much saying, well, they came to me and said we don't want to pay you anymore, and I said, good, I don't even want to get paid anymore. I quit. It's like, well,
Yeah.
what
Okay.
the fuck? So
he got fired. Whatever. It's no one even blames you for being mad about that. Just fucking be a person, Zarbano. I got fired. Get on with it.
Say you got fired. It's so strange and just how
It's happened to you like 4
Did you
times
hear
this
what
year,
Mike-
Justin.
Did you hear
Oh, yeah.
what Mike said he sent to Zarbano?
Yeah, his
Kirk was like, I sent him an application to Chili's.
that was great. I mean,
They're not hiring right now. 25%
Yeah,
capacity. They're not
I don't think
hiring.
many restaurants are hiring right now, so he's in a,
Yeah,
he's in a
yeah.
tough position.
Yeah,
But,
real tough spot.
So
He could be
the
an
last
Uber
thing I wanted to
driver,
get
I
on-
guess.
Oh, what were you saying?
I was saying he could be an Uber driver, I guess.
Yeah. He drives Mike to and from the studio now. What a demasculating way to go out that would be. So the last thing I wanted to touch on, they hit on it kind of near the end of the show. Other than the secret project stuff, that's going great. Kirk did say there was one hiccup that's happened this week, and that's that Steve hasn't been murdered yet. So I mean, hopefully things get rolling.
Yeah, I saw the Deathless guy put out a tweet today that welcome to
Yeah,
Steve.
so-
on the-
Yeah, Steve.
So, hopefully that doesn't affect the how the secret project comes out too much. But the last thing I wanted to touch on, they kind of talked about. I mean, Mike's on Patreon now, so like there's the talk of could Mike ever get censored on Patreon because this whole thing going on with Parler being shut down by Amazon Web Services, all these different places being banned. Do you guys ever think that like Barstool could ever get banned from something like this? Or do you think this is just kind of reaching too far to say that? Tony, I'll start with you because I know you have some hot takes.
Yeah, he's Castman's fucking lit up.
I do. Well, here's the problem. I'm gonna tick off all my conservative buddies here. So here we go. It's funny because reasonable regulation is the sort of thing that I generally support. Can I suggest that maybe for the last 30 years, we shouldn't have been busy trying to convince all the population of this country that corporations are in fact individuals, that those corporations thereby enjoy the same individual freedom as the individuals of the company do, or excuse me, of the country do.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've basically made it so that 6 giant tech companies are effectively in charge of the internet. I know there's a lot of smaller ones, but if we're being honest, about half a dozen big players have to agree, and then you're out of business. The trouble is, the present administration, and really this goes back through Bush and Obama and Clinton, where we've slowly deregulated the internet, got rid of all protections for the consumer on the internet, and basically said these companies are just so big, they're job creators. We want to give them all the advantages in the world to create more jobs and bring more money in. Yeah, the trouble is now you don't like what they're doing, so you're kicking back against them. I would say you sound like a bunch of Democrats. When the Democrats don't like that the oil companies are polluting, what do they ask Big Daddy government to do? Step in and put some regulations in place. Parler doesn't like what the big tech companies are doing. What do? They go to Big Daddy government because they want regulation. Bunch of frauds. All of these conservatives demanding that Parler be replatformed. Bunch of frauds. And I don't think deplatforming them was a good idea. I think it's actually a bad idea to pretend that stuff doesn't exist. But they screwed up by letting these big companies become effectively too big to fail and putting them in charge of the
Castman,
internet.
that was a well thought out fucking.
Yeah, no, I would say
Thank you.
I do think that it would be kind of, best for a lot of people if Google was broken up. I don't see why AT&T was broken up in the 70s, and we have this giant corporation in Google that pretty much controls the internet. Why YouTube can't be a separate company?
We watched Facebook basically consume all of its competitors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember the intro? You guys ever watched?
And we didn't want regulation because everybody was making too much money.
You guys ever watch Silicon Valley, where that intro was all the different tech companies, and there was just like one would close and the other one would eat it up? At this point, there's like 4 buildings in that introduction.
Yeah.
They've just like Google, Facebook. I mean, I worked for Comcast. Like Comcast owned, like the reason the internet's so fast is because of Comcast. You think they don't have a say in shit. Like they have 2 skyscrapers in Philadelphia. Like these companies just run everything, bro.
One
And
of them
it's
is shaped
scary,
like a
man.
USB.
What's that?
One of them is shaped like a flash drive.
One of them, yeah.
I learned that on my 7th grade field trip.
Yeah, they have 2 skyscrapers. Like, no, who else is building skyscrapers right now? Seriously, what do you think? Oil companies are out there building skyscrapers? You think Ford and them are out there building skyscrapers? No, it's fucking Google, it's fucking Comcast. They're the only people who have money to do that shit. They fucking run everything, dude. It's scary. But I think Castman was right. That was like, I guess you really can't bitch about this because we did spend 30 years just saying these companies can do whatever the fuck they want.
I mean, I'm 24 and I've never, campaigned for corporations to be seen as people. So I think I can still.
Well, did you vote for any candidates that supported legislation that did? Because you personally campaigning doesn't matter if you're not voting against it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know too much about this. I live in Massachusetts. They go blue no matter who.
Who'd you vote for president?
I voted for Donald Trump.
Okay, well then you voted for someone who is in favor of deregulating the internet. So you actually did vote in support of this.
I guess I did. I mean, but
you didn't do it on purpose. I understand that, but like, I don't think anybody who voted for Trump realized that. But
yeah,
on a more serious
topic, deregulating internet businesses looks like.
Steve's a liar guy. Steve's a liar guy is washed up. Warren in the North is the new king of parody songs. I want that on the fucking record.
Fair. That's not fair. How can you say that?
Dude, he's washed up.
That's.
Wait, what about Bye Bye Mike? I mean, he's like fucking Backstreet Boys in like 2008. Like, what were they doing? I meant the other Bye Bye Mike song. Sorry.
I'm just saying, Warren in the North is the new king.
No, I think Steve's a liar guy. Still reigns top for me.
What's Warden of the North's new big song? What's
he just did all in the Minute Family's introduction and video, and it was fantastic. 10 times better than the Blind Mike introduction.
That's a high bar.
I don't know.
I'm the worst on the internet. Okay, good for him. I agree. Warden of the North is the best. I withdraw my comment.
I love Warden. No, seriously. I saw a tweet by Channel Zero that said, "Steve the Liar guy is washed up before this," and I'm like, I'm going in there with that take because I love it. I love that take.
That's aggressive.
I'm just saying.
After that take, I want to wrap this up because that was
Justin's nervous now.
We're not talking bad about Steve the Liar. We're talking about big tech censorship. What about Big Justin? But no, just to get back to the big tech thing, I do think it's scary because I could see a time when Murchison or someone of Riccio, especially you look at Riccio's connections he has, could certain shows be taken off Apple Podcasts? Could certain shows be taken off?
Very possible.
The internet. And I think there was something interesting that Nardini said at this kind of the start of the quarantine and everything like that. She's like, we need to get back to blogging because the blog is the only
blog is the most pure form. That's the best. It's the best.
No one can take down because it's run by Barstool. That's just how they get it done. You don't have to go through anyone. You have to go through Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Twitter, anything like that. So she's like, we just need to get back to blog, get back to what made Barstool great. But I do see that in the future. I'm not talking about in the next year or two, or even within the life of the Kirk Minahan show, but I could see in 2030 or something of that, like people being like, well, we're not gonna have this. I mean, if people have an opinion on Portnoy and they kind of throw that to the rest of the company, there are definitely some people out there who think that Barstool having a platform is not a net positive.
But what you might see there is some decentralization because Barstool is a big enough media company that it might just start its own web hosting service. Mm-hmm. You might see something like that. There's the smaller players, though. That's where you have to get worried because Barstool is big enough to fight back. There's a lot of little guys, like, for example, the Blind Mike Patreon. That's David versus Goliath, if ever there was one. If they just decide to shut Patreon down, Mike's toast. He doesn't have the infrastructure or the money behind him. He's just done. Yeah. So, and like I don't want the challenge is you don't want the government being the grand arbiter of what is and isn't acceptable content. That's dangerous. But at the same time, when you give just complete authority to private industry,
no one should.
You lose a lot of say.
And that's why we have things like the FCC. Like those companies aren't really involved in this industry at all, and there's nothing set up for it. It's just another classic example of our government isn't prepared for the technology that is being put out there today, and they're too slow to keep up. So they just do nothing about it, and they're just getting consumed. And it's just, I'm telling you, man.
Tony,
Russia,
you made a good
come on
point.
over.
You made a good point about like how Barstool probably could get its own, web hosting service or whatever, and if they're big enough where they could probably do that. But in the likes of things, what does that say?
I see Bandit. I didn't see the others, but I saw Bandit.
Poppy.
But like you think of like, could Barstool 6 years ago, if they were kicked off, podcasting, and could they have survived? No. So it makes me
Probably not, no.
worry about.
No, Justin, you're wrong there, because that goes back to Nardini, where the heart of Barstool is that fucking blog, and that's what they control. That blog is everything they control, and that's where they start. It's like Dave always says, he'll go back to delivering fucking papers again. I think Barstool would always live, even if they were kicked off.
The Portnoy Nardini partnership in particular, they would find a way to be successful.
They'd find a way. And that's the only one I'm going to disagree with you on that take, though, Justin, because anyone else cannot handle that. Say, like, you know what I mean? Like, if fucking even ESPN right now, if they were kicked off a platform, I don't know how they would handle it. Like, if they didn't have a channel on fucking by Disney anymore, how would ESPN handle that? Whereas Barstool would, I think, it's a different situation. So I do think Barstool can.
If they were kicked off Twitter or something of the like, I mean, there are people that are going to lose. They're going to downside.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, Josh won't have a job.
Oh,
God forbid
that.
Oh no,
loses his job. Like Gaz, we would have to find something else to do, and all these people. So I do think it's a slippery slope, and I'm curious to see what the kind of next administration does in regards to censorship. If they're going to, I know Kirk said today that he thought things were going to kind of loosen up if Trump lost, and now he thinks the opposite. It'd be interesting to see what goes on. But you guys got anything else to say before I wrap this up? This has been a fun one.
I'm good.
A new T-shirt came out, the Fribble T-shirt.
Oh, what a great T-shirt! Shout out to my boy Harrison. What a fucking.
He's been pumping shirts out, huh?
That dude. I bought 2 shirts.
Did you? 2 Fribble ones? I saw the Rocket bought. He's like, I'll take 5.
I'll take 5.
It's a good shirt. They're getting better and better. This kid's the man. I like that kid.
So be sure to go check that out. Thank you so much to John from Scranton, Tony, High Blind Mike, and all that. And I will talk to you guys on Wednesday, where I will.
Carabas is the worst.
I will be joined by Tim and Ken and Red from Maine. So,
what a cunt! What a cunt!
What a fun show I should have.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun.
You'll see him next Tuesday.
But that's right. So thank you guys, and I will